Well, good morning. Happy Tuesday. And it's June 18th, 24. Beautiful day outside. Clear, sunny skies, fresh air, just beautiful. Hey, thanks for joining me. Let's see. Birthdays. We don't have any birthdays today. I think the next birthday, the next birthday is tomorrow. So I will close that out. And did you guys have a good day yesterday? Was it hot for you? I was outside in the evening last night, and it was beautiful outside. When it's this time of year, the only time you really can go outside is early in the morning or late in the evening. But when you do, it's really nice. And there was no mosquitoes. There's no, in some places where I've lived, you get mosquitoes, and those are no fun. But so far, we haven't had any mosquitoes. I don't know if you have. Let me close that out. I'm going to close that. No, I won't. I'll leave that open. Let's see. Where am I? Right there. What else? I guess that's it. We're just in the lazy days of summer. Little bit more relaxed. Don't have to go in early for the school. When the kids get dropped off, it's a little bit more relaxed to get into the office. And so I hope you're enjoying your summer. Let's go ahead and get into our study. We're in 1 Kings chapter 4. Solomon is on the throne, and we've seen how he is judging wisely. The last episode, we saw how he was clever in negotiating this conflict between two women who both were claiming ownership of a baby. And Solomon was able to navigate that very well. The news of that spread to people. And now Solomon is a leader, and the leader of Israel. And he's a bit different of a leader than his father David. First of all, his father David was the first king. And when you are the first in anything, it's difficult to set up your kingdom. But Solomon watched his father, and Solomon learned from his father. And Solomon obviously has some skills, because picking up where his father left off, and now as the ruler of Israel, he sees his job as allowing Israel to be safe and prosperous. And what do you call it? From all threats, foreign and domestic. Try to protect Israel from all threats, foreign and domestic, which is basically what a king is supposed to do. And so let's pick up the story in 1 Kings chapter 4. So King Solomon ruled over all of Israel, and these were his chief officials. Just real quick, all of Israel is both the northern and the southern kingdom. They came together under David's rule, and now he's ruling a rather large kingdom. Way more than one person can rule just by themselves. And in order then to rule this entire kingdom, you have to have leadership and structure set up. And that's what we're going to see here. These were his chief officials: Azariah, son of Zadok, the priest; Alehoreph and Ahijah, son of Shisha, secretaries; Jehoshaphat, son of Ahilud, recorder; Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, commander-in-chief. He was the one that has been commander-in-chief. Zadok and Abiathar, priests. That one's interesting. So Zadok, you'll remember, was the chief priest under David, stayed in Jerusalem when Absalom came to try to take over Jerusalem. And Abiathar, he was kind of exiled by Solomon. But the interesting thing about priests is that you can't really defrock them. You can't really kill them either. They're men of God. What's interesting in the Roman Catholic Church, when you become a priest, you basically remain the priest. Even if you're in prison, you remain a priest. It's a title that's given to you. It's an honor given to you. And when you're a priest in the Roman Catholic Church and you celebrate communion, and you change the bread and the wine into the body and blood of Jesus, that ability to do that, that nation, I guess you could call it, stays with you forever. And even though he has his own priest that we looked at before, that was the first one that was mentioned, right? Azariah, son of Zadok, is the priest. But apparently, Zadok and Abiathar are still alive and still given the honorific role of priest. You could say priest in exile, you could say priest emeritus, but they're still there and they're listed. So priests at the time of Solomon had great respect, and Solomon continues in that tradition. Azariah, son of Nathan, in charge of the district governors. Zabud, son of Nathan, a priest and an advisor to the king. Ahishar, palace administrator. Adoniram, son of Abda, in charge of forced labor. Now that's interesting, in charge of forced labor. So these are the people that you could almost call him his cabinet. The secretaries, the person in charge of the district governors, the advisor to the king, these are all the people that you need internal into government to run the government at the local place. You could say in the United States today, these would be the Secretary of War, Secretary of Defense, Secretary of Commerce, all these different secretaries that advise the President of the United States and form the cabinet. Because it is very similar to this, that when you have the President of the United States is the executive who runs the whole entire United States. He is in charge. He is large and in charge. And to make sure that all the different departments are coordinated, he is the one that has different branches of government, but they all report to him and they discuss government amongst the cabinet. Because if you make a change here, it could make a change over here. And this is true with pretty much every government around the world. This is typically how it's set up. You might have different forms of electing the leaders, but this is typically how it's done. And it goes back. I mean, this is how it's done under King Solomon. And maybe King Solomon kind of perfected this rule for Israel, and it's still today. But that's only the rule centrally, right? And so you also have to have governors in areas and territories that are ruling the territories. And then they would report, apparently, in charge of the district governors. So you obviously have district governors, and they would report to this guy, Azariah, son of Nathan. And so let's see how that goes. Verse 7. Solomon had 12 district governors over all of Israel who supplied provisions for the king and the royal household. And each one had to provide supplies for 1 month in the year. And these are their names. Now, this is interesting because there's 12 tribes of Judah, and now you have 12 district governors, and they supply all the provisions for the king. And the way that Solomon set it up is that each month of the year is your month. So you might spend the whole entire year coming up with the provisions, and then once a year you travel them up to Jerusalem and you give them to the king, and he lives off of those provisions for a month. It's actually a very easy way to do this because if you'll remember, you may not know this, money may not have existed back then as it is today. So funding government with money doesn't really work. And so funding government with supplies is a way that it can be done. And so all these supplies come once a month to the king, and now he could trade and barter for these things, and maybe he does because it's a lot of stuff. We'll find out here that let's see, is it given? Yeah, when we get to the point where we're looking at how how much is given to the king. It's a lot. But it may not have been used solely for the king to eat with. It may have been used by the king to negotiate and barter for other services in Jerusalem. But let's take a look at the rulers. These are the governors in each of the territories. These are their names. Ben-Hur in the hill country of Ephraim, different from the Ben-Hur at the time of Christ in the Cecil B. DeMille movie with Charlton Heston. This is an old Ben-Hur, lived in the country. Ben in Hebrew means son of, or son. So son of Hur, son of Decker. Ben Decker in Makaz, Shalbim, Beth Shemesh, and Elon Bethahanan. Ben Chesed in Arabath, Sukkot, and all the land of Hepher were his. Chesed is a Hebrew word that means everlasting love, unconditional love, loving kindness. Chesed is a very popular description of God. That God has chesed love for his people. So you have a guy named Ben Chesed, and he's in Arabath. Then you have Ben Abinadab in Naphoth Dor. He was married to Taphath, daughter of Solomon. Ooh, that's interesting. Bana, son of Achilud in Tanakh, and Megiddo, and in all of Beth Shan next to Zarethan, below Jezreel, from Beth Shan to Abel Meholah, across Jacmeam. Ben Geber in Ramoth Gilead, the settlements of Jair, son of Manasseh in Gilead were his, as well as the regions of Argob and Bashan and its 60 large walled cities with bronze gate bars. 60 large walled cities. So think of that. That's just 1/12 of the kingdom, and it has 60 large walled cities. This is a lot. Ahinadab, son of Edo, in Mahanaim. Ahimaaz in Naphtali, he had married Basemeth, daughter of Solomon. Bana, son of Hushai, in Asher and Aloth. Jehoshaphat, son of Peruah, in Issachar. Shimei, son of Elah, in Benjamin. Gebar, son of Uri, in Gilead. Where are we? Gilead. Yes, Miriam. Naphtali, Hushai, Jehoshaphat, son of Peru and Issachar, Shimei, Geber, son of Uri, and Gilead, the country of Shiloh, king of Amorites, and the country of Og, king of Bashan. He was the only governor of the district. So those are the 12. And this is, I don't know. We don't know yet the relationship between these people and Solomon, whether they're happy to have Solomon as king or they're not, if they appreciate Solomon as king or not. But they apparently have agreed to provide for the provisions of Solomon once 1 month a year. And it seems like things are going well. And let's just go to the next section. It talks a little bit about what that means. Verse 20, the people of Judah and Israel were as numerous as the sand on the seashore, and they ate, they drank, and they were happy. And Solomon ruled over all the kingdoms from the Euphrates River to the land of the Philistines as far as the border of Egypt. These countries brought tribute and were Solomon's subjects all his life. So it appears that the people are happy. And what makes people happy? Well, obviously, one of the things that makes people happy is that they're not being invaded by foreign governments. And for whatever reason, while David seemed to deal with conflicts all the time, as of this point in life, we're not really seeing about a lot of the conflicts. I'm sure there always are conflicts. But the people, their crops were prosperous, so they were eating, they were drinking, they were happy, there was structure in government. Remember, this Solomon's only the second king, so there's no entrenched government yet. There's no, what makes government bad is when it gets entrenched and they seek power more than they seek the will of the people and serving the people. And at this point, it doesn't appear that Solomon has become making it all about himself. Now, go back to this. Solomon's daily provisions were 30 cores of the finest flour and 60 cores of meal. That is a lot. I was reading in one of the commentary, this is like enough to feed 120 people, 120,000 people. I mean, it's just a lot. 10 heads of stall-fed cattle. These are the daily provisions. 20 of pasture-fed cattle, and 100 sheep as goat, as well as deer, gazelles, roebucks, and choice fowl. Now, if you think about it, this is a lot. But if you're talking about a city of 60, then it's, and each walled gate, maybe provides 2 or 3 a year. I mean, this is what happens in government, right? Is that the larger the area of the government, the more you're able to get from the people, because it just takes a little bit from each area to come and fund the government. And I don't think Solomon ate all this food, but I do believe that he was able to use this food to barter for things that he would need. If there's palace repair, or if he wants to expand the room in the palace, or if he wants to buy a fine dress or a garment for, one of his concubines or whatever, he then has the ability to do that, because food at that time was something that everybody needed, and so it was always able to be used as a bartering chip for ruling the government. Now, when money came along, you don't need food anymore. You can use money to be able to purchase goods. And that's really all money is. I just finished a fantastic book on money. Where was I? I had to go to a pastor's meeting in California. And so at night, I read a book on the money. I know that sounds crazy, but it was fascinating. Oh my goodness. So money has 2 uses. One as a store of value, which typically in history, gold has fulfilled that role. And then the other one is just as a bartering to circulate in the economy, that you have, and then you pass that along to buy goods and purchases kind of like on a daily or weekly basis. And typically silver has been used as that. So silver and gold, store of value, and to be able to circulate in the economy. But they didn't have, they had silver and gold, but it wasn't necessarily used as money. But this is more like silver, because all food, the problem with food is that it perishes. So you can't have a store of value for food because it perishes. And so you can have you can have big, huge silos of grain, but all it takes is some bug or virus or something to get in there and it can eat all your grain. So as a store of value, it just doesn't work. But grain silos, or having some grain, can be used as a barter. And the fact that it comes once a month means that it's not a store of value. It's just a way for the government to function like silver, to be used for the daily needs of the kingdom. Let's see, which is very fascinating. I mean, it's an incredibly excellent way to run a government. It really, truly is very fascinating. Let's see, verse 26. Solomon had 4,000 stalls for chariot horses and 12,000 horses. The district governors, each in his month, supplied provisions for King Solomon and all who came to the king's table. They saw to it that nothing was lacking. They also brought to the proper place their quotas of barley and straw for the chariot horses and the other horses. So basically, they provide for the king's needs. And at this point, it doesn't seem like they're bothered by this. And at this point, government is lean and mean. So it's not as if Solomon is asking for something that is taxing the people. And so the people are happy. When I mean taxing, overtaxing the people. So the people are happy. And what's interesting, there's a guy named Laffer who was an economist working under the Reagan administration. He's still alive. He shows up every once in a while. You'll read something about him. But what he noticed was that there's an upper limit to how much you can tax people. And it's somewhere around 15%. I think the actual number that he came up with is 17%, but it's just a range. Like if you just tax people 10%, they're happy. They truly are. 10% seems to be a number that's manageable, that people aren't upset with. Once you get over 17%, then the people start to get upset because it's too much taxation. And so what you end up with is that the more money or funds that people have, the more they can hire lawyers and accountants to fight the tax or to move their assets offshore so that they're not taxed, or all sorts of tax schemes that they can do by digging into the tax code and finding out ways to not pay more than about 17% of the tax. And so the Laffer curve, where he came up with, is basically says that the higher the tax rate, it goes up until about 17%. And then as it goes to 20 and 30%, the amount of revenue that the government actually gets goes down. And so the optimum tax rate is right there at that 15 to 17%. It's like the very maximum that you can tax people and they're happy with it. And then over 17%, your actual revenue from people drops because smart corporations and people will figure out ways to not be taxed. And if the Laffer curve is true, it's called the Laffer curve, then really government should limit what it does to about 17%. And not really go over that, because that's the sustainable amount that any government can get from its people. And right now, government is spending a whole lot more than that. And this is unsustainable. It's just simply unsustainable. And so the government basically prints money, which is called monetizing the debt. And then after they monetize the debt and print money, then the value of the cash that you have in your hand goes down. So it's kind of like a secret tax that you don't really see. And people don't really see it. And that's how governments can get beyond the 17%. But corporations are smart, and people are smart, and so they figure out ways so that when the value of money goes down, that they're still protected because they own assets, and assets, they don't go down. They rise with inflation. I don't know why I'm talking about all this. Okay, verse 29. God gave Solomon wisdom and very great insight, and a breadth of understanding as measureless as the sand on the seashore. Solomon's wisdom was greater than the wisdom of all the people of the East, and greater than all the wisdom of Egypt. He was wiser than anyone else, including Ethan the Ezrahite, wiser than Heman, Calcol, and Darda, the sons of Mahol, and his fame spread to all the surrounding nations. He spoke 3,000 proverbs, and his songs numbered 1,005. He spoke about plant life, from the cedar of Lebanon to the hyssop that grows out of the walls. He also spoke about animals and birds, reptiles and fish. From all nations, people came to listen to Solomon's wisdom, sent by all the kings of the world who had heard of his wisdom. So Solomon is a wise guy. And notice what it says about wisdom here, that he writes poetry, he writes poems, he speaks proverbs, and he looks at God's creation and he thinks about and contemplates about God's creation. And because he's the king and because the people are kind of supporting him, then he has the time and the resources to simply walk in God's creation and contemplate the philosophies of life. And apparently he does that very, very well. And the people are very, very happy with this. Of course, the people are happy mostly because there's no wars and because there's no famine or drought. Because as soon as wars or famine or drought happen, who's going to get blamed? Solomon, because he's in charge. And even if Solomon has no control whatsoever of the drought, he will get blamed for it because he's in charge. And so God, aside from giving Solomon wisdom, is also giving him a peaceful kingdom to live in. so that he can concentrate not on wars and on drought, but on philosophizing about life. And this makes Solomon very, very popular. And so if you are a king ruling over a nation, one of the things that you should do every morning when you wake up is pray, Lord, don't give me famine, don't give me drought, don't give me war, so that the people love me. And perhaps God will bless you with that. All right, let's close in prayer. Gracious God, thanks for this day and for this beautiful day. And watch over us and keep us safe until we meet again. In Jesus' name, amen. Let me go over here. Those of you joining me online, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I hope you have a great day. Stay warm, or stay warm. You will stay warm. Stay cool. And we'll see you tomorrow. Take care. Bye.